Doing something for the first time is wild. And when you think of the outdoors, it's inherently wild. I think the most important thing for me is sharing an activity, sharing what I love with people that have not experienced that or have some kind of barrier related to it. The magic of being able to create that bond, that connection with an activity, a person, a place, that's special. Let's get started. I mean, it's another episode of Sincerely Yours Outdoors. Marcus is here. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Everything is cool with Derek. Everything is fine. He's not here today, but I'm gonna take this on for the team today, and I'm sure he's gonna be running around for the next episode, maybe even knocking some stuff out on his own as well. So, here with Tacumba, the homie.
What's up, man?
Like always, good to be kicking it with you. Set the scene for where we are. It's like,
yeah, so we in Homewood at the Oasis Farm and Fishery. It's been around for 10 years now. Been working here 4 years, and yeah, we gearing up for our pizza night. One of our community outreach events we do on the first Thursday each month.
Yeah, big pie night.
Yeah,
the kids is ready, the families is ready. Looking forward to checking that out. I mean, you got the oven nice and blazing today.
Yeah.
on what, a 90-degree Pittsburgh.
600 degrees on 91.
Young juvenile out here, for sure. It feels like that. Well, what you been listening to? What you been vibing to? What's been getting you through the times that you would like to share with the team here?
It's been a mix of, I started DJing recently, so I feel like my music's palette's been all over the place. A little Jersey clubs, some oldies.
Okay.
A lot of Afrobeat, some trap. I think artists I've been listening to a lot lately have been like Burna Boy, Blast.
Okay. Hey, it's summertime, baby.
Yeah.
Eclectic young man, for sure.
No, definitely.
I love that. The new DJ life, I'm feeling that. We got some DJs in the house too, looking around, seeing the team, we must be doing something right. I love that. We want to definitely open up the door to start the interview by just letting you give some free game. Everything that we like to share in this space, especially when it comes to outdoors, there's no need to reinvent anything. Maybe you're experiencing something that you want to share. It doesn't have to be ultra personal. It can just be what it is. But is there anything that you feel like you've been experiencing here recently that you're like, man, I'd love to get this out to more people?
I mean, I feel like the work we're doing here on a whole is pretty dynamic. And I think given the context of like the urban ag scene in Pittsburgh, I think we're doing a lot of things that are worthy of notoriety. You know what I'm saying? Just in terms of the programs we run, how we do them, as far as like a pedagogical approach. Yeah. I think we got a pretty cool farm team. Everyone brings like different skills and a lens to the work, but there's still like a shared sense of vision of how we moving forward.
For sure. So let's dive into that. I mean, we're sitting at a spot that I feel like I was introduced to specifically from you. We connected one time. He was like, yo, you should come by the farm. And you know me, I'm like,
yeah.
I'm always open to experience everything in abundance. And you were like, yeah, stop by and let's check it out. And I stopped by and I was like, man, this is incredible. Not just the physical land that's being tended here, but the aquaponics lab and everything that's there. Can you speak more about, one, just proximity-wise, literally where we are in Homewood, the importance of a tool like this, and the curriculum that you're providing, and that pedagogical sense of like, yo, this is empowering for our community, and what that looks like on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so we're in South Homewood. Homewood is a historically African-American community. One of two primarily black neighborhoods in the city of Pittsburgh, that and the Hill District, which is central Pittsburgh. So I think it's extremely important that something like this exists in the neighborhood. And there's other like urban farms in Homewood. But as far as like some of the things we're doing that kind of distinguish us, certainly is like having like the solar arrays,
Hmm.
having like an off-grid setup, and being able to like cultivate protein on a demonstration level to show people how that could be done, which I think all like funnels into like the type of self-determination we try to encourage people to have,
For sure.
an agency around like reclaiming their connection to land, their food, where it comes from, and being more self-sufficient, and through a community lens, right?
Hmm.
Like, so it's not just about like hoarding supplies and like being a doomsday prepper, but no, like cultivating skills that will be needed and are needed, especially in the case of like some type of emergency or climate disaster, which it seems like
Hmm.
we're moving towards in slow motion. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it comes full circle with literally just seeing kids run around here and young adults. And I feel like leaders like yourself leading programs that are top notch but are community centric. I mean, you're in a beautiful spot right now, and I know the work that you've done and cultivated and the future, because I think we talk about that pretty often.
yeah.
But what has been the moment of clarity for you? What was the moment when you said food sustainability, aquaponics, gardening, this is my love, this is my passion, and I want to share with other people? You know, for me, it was interesting because, you know, from the food sustainability sense, I was gardening with my grandparents when I was
Yeah.
a kid, and that was, you know, it's palatable and it's tangible, it's tactile, and it's an experience that once you get your hands in the soil, you'll never forget it. But when I think about all of the things that I do professionally, especially in the recreational space, it was the first camping experience with my grandparents. It was, you know, these things that turned into a profession. For you, I mean, I know a little bit about you, about conservation crews and all of that, but
Yeah.
the food sustainability piece, what did that morph
Yeah,
into
I
as a
think
child of yours?
it's two things that stick out to me. Like personally, my grandma passing when I was 12. She passed away from a massive heart attack at 44 in her sleep, very young to be down for something like that. And I think just that being something that lingered with me. She gardened,
Hmm.
so just someone who's like a reference point for this work, but also both a source of motivation for me wanting to like talk about this stuff in community,
Hmm.
and then like learning as I grew around just like how ubiquitous an issue cardiovascular disease is in
Hmm.
this country, and particularly like in Black communities, where there was like a research project we had to do, and we were looking at like wars, casualties of war, and like how more people in the year like 2018 had died from cardiovascular diseases than like 5 wars combined.
Hmm.
Like, so I mean, it became clear at that point, and like having skills geared around like stewarding land and reclamating spaces where it's like, I could be using these skills in a much more pertinent like way that's addressing a real issue I've experienced and that I see and now know is like the leading cause of death in our country. So I just felt
Hmm.
like it was like a very easy kind of shift, and like wanting to work with kids,
Yeah.
to someone who's the oldest of 5 and has been a part of a lot of different like programs growing up, having a younger mom. I think all these things kind of bled into wanting to do something around food and land. So
Yeah. Yes. That's a beautiful experience, and the food sovereignty piece that I know you speak of, and thinking of like Sankofa and people that really are stepping into this space and not conforming to the standard, but saying culturally, this is how we represent ourselves, this is how we bring community together, and this is how we're going to move forward. I feel like that's constantly been transparent through Oasis and honestly through you, like you're
yeah,
leading in that space. Can you speak more to the food sovereignty piece and how, I mean, again, Sankofa and yourself have been
yeah.
blazing the trail, especially in this community. It's like, yo, we can do this. We have the empowerment pieces here in our own community to do these things. We just need to activate it.
Yeah, I mean, I think uh, that's another piece too, though. Like, I think I came into this work through Sankofa. Ayana Jones,
Mm.
certainly my first mentor in agriculture, followed by Cleve Jones. But I think as far as like how we're contributing to food sovereignty, which is a very, it's a concept that isn't native to America. It's actually, it comes from South America. And I think I'll bring this up because like in a situation where peasant farmers, for lack of a better term, no disrespect, are directly having to contend with the actions of corporations where their livelihood is being uprooted by the decisions that boards are making around like what pesticides to grow or how to monetize seeds or, you know, all these different things like appropriating land. So for us, like looking at what this looks like in our context, being that we're on the land of the Seneca, and I mean, there's like a whole history around like chattel slavery and what that did. It's interesting to like think about the plurality of how that can look here, given like the origins of food sovereignty and like the kind of different racial, socioeconomic like history of America relative to South America. But I think nonetheless, you know, self-determination is a through line. Learning about your ancestry and being more in tune with that as far as like some of those practices and how they could like help us in today to like overcome certain challenges or like health issues or, you know, being able to like preemptively prepare for challenges like climate change, but also like really trying to create alternative systems to be less vulnerable to systemic neglect. You know, I mean, ultimately, food as we know it today is highly commoditized and it's a big business. And it's over-determined how like access has been provided to people that are low income. So I think, you know, we come into it through a certain vantage point where we're both trying to talk about like the environmental piece, like the health piece and like the historical, social implications of the work. So I think that's an ongoing process and we iterating and, you know, being a younger person myself, you know, taking heed from our elders and elders and trying to be in community with folks that are doing this work concurrently and learning. And just embracing that and just being open about where I'm at in my process as someone who's looked at it as like an expert in this. Like there's always more to learn and grow and trying to tap into other people's experiences to learn myself and to amplify what we can learn together. So, I mean, I think that's kind of been how we've gone about it to this point.
Yeah, for sure. And that's beautiful. Because, yeah, I mean, just to kind of tag on to a statement you said, I mean, you're the expert in my mind, you know? Like, I think of people in this space, when I have an environmental or food sustainability question, I come to you. It's like, we have that connection, and I think that's the beautiful piece is young people are now leading.
Yeah.
Like, literally, you are leading and doing intentional work, which I think is extremely important, but giving back and educating community that, like, as I look around, I'm like, yo, we're not that old. And we're giving it back to people that are like younger than us that are like ready to take a stand, take a position, advocate on behalf of, and make valiant strides to make sure that that justice piece is there. So I even tag onto that question, what does the environmental justice piece look like here in Pittsburgh? I know that's a broad question, and you're like, what's the politically appropriate response? But to me, I think we're open to hearing the perspective that means the most to you that you feel comfortable sharing.
I mean, I think we got it's just a case by case basis. I think in the sense that each city has their own journey to how they got to the point they're at. So like just taking into account Pittsburgh, you know, U.S. Steel is a huge piece in the story of Pittsburgh, migration patterns, people that came here and why. My ancestors are definitely a result of U.S. Steel coming from the South up here and folks moving up to provide opportunity for their family. And I think that is the starting point. And then we look into like the operational facets of U.S. Steel and how much pollution was associated with that. And along with just like where we were as a country during like the early industrial periods. And I mean, I think you start to think about how that has impacted how these neighborhoods have developed over time and what areas are more, what communities are in like closer proximity to pollution. So like having worked in Braddock and realizing like North Braddock was created for U.S. Steel to like avoid taxes, and people that had the money moved from Braddock to North Braddock to get further away from the pollution. Like, and like, or even in Homewood, people like, you know, Homewood was a middle class neighborhood at one point. And as like the Mellon Arena was built in the 50s. People were displaced, and a lot of people moved to the north side, Northview, to Homewood, to Garfield. And even thinking about like today, right? Like where, Homewood isn't like overly exposed to like byproducts of chemical manufacturing from like the Shenango Coke factory or US Steel, but there's no trees here. There's a lot of like poor infrastructure associated with tax-based stuff that's due to white flight that happened in the 60s and 70s. So I mean, I think like when you start to consider some of the nuances around like the history of Pittsburgh and how certain corporations play pivotal roles, I mean, I think for me and what it looks like is trying to like offer up like systemic solutions that mitigate the ongoing harm. So like thinking about what harm reduction looks like. So that could be, hey, let's make sure the fines are substantial enough for the companies to change their business model versus saying, F it, just keep fining us because we're making so much money that this is the cheapest solution versus us actually changing. I think, so that would be one. To like more substantial holistic, or I mean, I don't know. I think that has to be a community informed conversation for real. But I think considering like, what mechanisms local community development corporations could play and maybe levying higher fines or harsher punishments to these corporations operating in their municipalities, neighborhoods that are poisoning future generations of leaders, inventors, scientists. It should be put in a certain real perspective around the harm that's being done on a generational level, like, you know what I mean? So I don't know, I feel like it would range from like more harm reduction, like how can we like put the Band-Aid on a bullet wound, to like how can we actually stitch this up, take the bullet out and stitch it up, right? So I mean, I think that's something I'm just interested in being a part of. And I think certainly looking at the farm is like a convergence point between land, energy, and water. It lends itself to like issues around like the watershed and air pollution, and like how the farm could be a vehicle to explore how to mitigate these things or work around these things or circumvent them.
For sure.
Or just why we need more spaces like this, because there are so much toxins and pollutants.
Yeah, exactly. And you referenced the farm. I'd love for you to dive into that a little bit more and, speak to what's on site. I mean, we kind of referenced it thus far, the aquaponics lab, the raised garden beds, I mean, the fire oven over your shoulder, but there's so much more than just the physical assets. There's you with educational curriculum that you've designed along with the other individuals that work on the farm that have cultivated a beautiful space for people to show up, receive just basic mentorship to curriculum that will sustain their life and make them healthy, but also do that in community that's really trenched in the positive benefits of our community and our space. So what's going on here that you want to put out and share to the people to say like, yo, come plug in with us, but also this is a model that you created that could be created in other spaces like a Philly or
exactly.
Anywhere.
I mean, I think principally it's being asset based and how you go about trying to provide interventions or corrective action to address issues in your community. I think for me, it'll be easy to look at certain statistics and reports that are deficit oriented and say, okay, people don't know, because these deficits exist, people must not know about blank, versus assuming that people have reference points in their own relationships with land, food, farming that can be a jumping off point and that they come with knowledge themselves. So I think that's one piece that we try to instill throughout all our programming, and then having programs for the whole community. And that might look like, there's 3 initiatives under one org geared towards different segments. So we have, agriculture, nutritional work we do with the babies. I call babies K through 12, even though I'm only 28. But then we got like workforce development stuff for folks that are interested in aspiring to be in the agriculture industry, where they can get like micro credentials. We're working with PASA to provide that. I mean, we have stuff for adults around wellness or just like general gardening. We offer volunteer days. And we're looking at having like a community advisory council that we can pay and solicit more input on what we could be doing to make this work as relevant as it needs to be, given that, we're not doing this in a vacuum. You know what I'm saying? So
For sure.
I think those are some of the initiatives that are coming up, I think, that are cool, that I like to like emphasize and showcase, and like some of this what's informed the work to this point.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I love Oasis Farm, and I think, again, it's primarily just based off of the experience that I've had with you and what you've shown around and introduced me to, which I think is extremely important. But you referenced having the youth, play a vital role in this, the community play a vital role in this. I just want to hear from your perspective. What do you feel like the future of food sustainability will look like? That's a broad question.
I mean, I think it's going to be partially more corporate consolidation, and like tangential to that, more smaller farms popping up, maybe more cooperatives, more horizontally integrated movements that are, making up for the like deficit in capital compared to our corporate counterparts. I think beyond that, maybe more like solidarity work and things like that popped up during the pandemic, that, we're able to like prototype models around how we can get resources to people in need without it being profit driven. So, I mean, I feel like there's gonna be more of the same, but I think in response to issues that will only worsen, unfortunately, I think there will be more happening across the board. You know what I'm saying? I think, and hopefully that is able to create like parallel systems and processes that people can tap into, where if they're not being served or affirmed by the government, or like, whatever, any like resources that are made available through tax dollars, then, organizations like ours can do our part to like try to encourage people to take it into their own hands, with support to like, address some of those issues. And we're not saying just like bootstrap it, like, there's a scalability thing here that we have to consider, but that's what I would say the future is.
I love that. So we got one last question, and then I'm gonna open the floor to you to give shout outs, call out the team, but we always like to just wrap up and ask what the next adventure is for you. That could be whatever it is. Personally, it could be like, I'm going to DJ at this next set, and it's gonna be popping. Like, that's what I'm looking forward to. Or,
I mean, I think for me, I want to continue to build community around food and my own practice. I'm a creative director and art creator, so wanting to like pour more energy into that, and use art as a vehicle to inspire thought and like highlight and support local artistry, like some of the folks in the space today, and be able to like cultivate that into a thing that people look forward to and energize to like attend and support, and having like a multitude of offerings. So I look at like Afropunk as like a source of inspiration and wanting to emulate something like that through the work I'm doing here in the city, being that there's a lot of talent that's often overlooked. I feel like a lot of people that get the looks tend to be transplants, which is no shade. Like, what I mean? Some of the coolest people I know are from other spaces, like Ash, who works here, is from Oakland. Like, what I mean? But, there's a lot of people here like myself doing dope stuff that, with some proper recognition could be better connected and supported. So I think that's something I'm looking forward to. And I don't know if that represents like a shift away from like doing farming or trying to think through what a conversion points look like, but that feels like something that was a passion project that's actually morphing into like a viable like enterprise now.
I get that.
Yeah.
I've been there.
You're
talking to one who gets it, for sure. Yeah, I mean, as if you don't already know, like, the empowering point of chasing your dreams and seeing it as a reality is something to hold on to. That's something that it's a feeling that can't be replicated, man. So I wish you the best in that journey, for sure, and how I can help. Shout outs. Anybody you want to shout out? This is your time. Shout out Mama Duke. Shout out the full team. Shout out whoever.
Shout out to Mom Duke. Shout out Latrice Wiles. Shout out to my pops, RIP, Ahmed Tacumba Turner Sr., my brothers, Ash Chan, Nick Serio, Maya Green, Janae Brown. Tanisha Chambers, the Wallaces,
As always.
yourself. You know what I mean?
It's all love.
You know, there's a lot of people that think. I mean, it's certainly been. I feel like my work and where I'm at now is a byproduct of having a lot of mentors and people I've been able to pull their ear and ask questions and you know, I think for me that's really informed why I approach the work I do now and trying to be that for other people. So
For sure.
yeah. I mean, we could be here a little longer, but also shout out to One Hood for supporting The Future is Black. So make sure y'all check that out at blackfutures.org. You know what I'm saying? So
For sure. And shout out to I know the homie walking around Zone A.
yeah.
All love to that and everybody
Yeah,
that's
big
been here
Zone.
so far. So yeah, I mean it's been
Cool, man. Appreciate you.
all love as always, and it's a wrap.